This is Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. The budget 2022 or Belanjawan 2022 is bearing down on us. And in the next few days, if not weeks, we're going to be talking at length about what to expect from the budget. And not just that, some of the wish lists, some of the good ideas that we want to see being implemented in the budget, and maybe cross-reference with that wish list against the budget that will be presented by either the Finance Minister or the Prime Minister. So joining us in this conversation is Tai Lai Kok, the head of tax at KPMG, trying to tell us or share with us some of his ideas on what he thinks the budget 2022 should be shaping up. So Tai, thanks for taking the time to speak with us. Let's go through some of your initial thoughts on budget 2022. How will this be a little bit different than the stimulus packages that we've seen versus the 12th Malaysia Plan, all these big mega documents that we've seen, but I'm sure there are some ideas that you want to share with us when it comes to the budget in particular, Tai.
Right. Thanks very much, Ibrahim. First of all, I guess the budget theme, to a certain extent, has been made known. We're talking about recovery, we're talking about resilience, we're talking about reform, and lots of things for the government to do when they announced the 12th Malaysia Plan. Looks as if there will be a significant increase in development expenditure. Okay, that's what they are projecting in the 12th Malaysia Plan, much more than what was spent, or at least budgeted to be spent in the 11th Malaysia Plan. Now, I feel that we are still, as much as everybody might want to say that we are over the worst of it, I think we are still quite somewhere in the middle, where the bad times are not over yet. I think businesses still need a lot of support. And some of the measures that were introduced by the government in past years, to a certain extent, have had very little impact because of the fact that, the businesses were not ready for some of the measures. Let me give you an example, Ibrahim. The reinvestment allowance, there was an extension of reinvestment allowance incentives that was announced some years back. And it hit right smack in the middle of the pandemic. And in the pandemic, how many people are going to be able to increase spending? If anything, most are extremely cautious about spends, and therefore, the impact of these incentives didn't really help anyone. And if we are talking about really reinvigorating the economy again, making sure investments are made, making sure that things do progress, then to me, perhaps they should be thinking about an extension of the reinvestment allowance incentive, as an example. Another thing that I was thinking about also is probably a little bit on a smaller scale, but really more on a CSR, agenda. During the pandemic, I think we have seen the best of Malaysia. To a certain extent, we've seen how bad it can be. And there are so many of us that have actually hurled out and given out support to the public in one way or another. And very largely, apart from those contributions that are being made by large businesses, maybe large businessmen, to the government to aid COVID relief efforts, there are a lot of people who also say, for example, give food to the needy. They provide supplies to the needy. And a lot of these contributions, if you like, are not acknowledged by way of giving them deductions. So far in the Malaysian context, a lot of the deductions for contributions for CSR is cash contributions. Now, there are a lot of people who are giving away free meals. There are a lot of restaurants who are saying, look, I will help now. If I have got excess food, I will give it away to those people who have got nothing to eat. I think in order to promote a more caring society, we should also be looking at that particular angle and see how it is that we can incentivize business owners, maybe on a smaller scale, to do more for the needy, I think, in Malaysia itself. So I think that's also one of the things. Maybe a third one that perhaps I would like to share also is things that perhaps a lot of people have told me about. We have the B40 group, as you know, Ibrahim, and every single year, without fail, the government does dish out support to the B40, recognizing that they are the most needy of all of us, in fact. But very little has been done for the M40. And I think that's the other thing that we should be thinking about. I mean, with these increasing costs of living, given the fact that we have the pandemic, given the fact that there are all kinds of disturbances to everybody's life, the M40 are not suffering much less. I think they should be recognition of the M40 and the fact that they are the bearing a significant brunt of the effects of the pandemic, and we should be looking at ways and means in which to support them. I think in the past they have been given certain small benefits, but perhaps we should be relooking into that as well. Maybe I'll stop for now, Ibrahim, if you've got any comments.
Let's touch the last point first, because we keep on hearing this from tax consultants, tax leaders, as well as economists, that the center of the income structure, the M40, is not taken care of the way B40 and of course the T20 or T1. I'd like it's a little bit different, and we've seen how globally, we've seen how $9 trillion have been plunged into the economy across the world. Malaysia, the number ranges from 9 billion to 12 billion, take your pick in terms of how you want to measure the particular stimulus package. But generally speaking, billions of ringgit, if not dollars, are pumped into the economy, trying to help out a lot of sectors. But when you want to talk about helping the M40, it might not necessarily be cash injections or stimulus packages. It can also be cash relief. Tax relief is the clearest example, but all the other reliefs are also possible. Do you feel that there could be an opportunity for Belanjawan 2022 to have these kind of elements in it?
I certainly hope so, Ibrahim. As I said, in the past, there have been some small measures insofar as additional reliefs are concerned. And to be fair, they did bring in lifestyle reliefs. They did increase lifestyle reliefs to a little bit. They did give a little bit of a reduction insofar as the taxes, insofar as some income brackets are concerned. But think of it, a lot of these things don't necessarily just benefit the M40, the T20. They are also enjoying the same benefits. So effectively, what is it that has been given that is specifically targeted for this particular group of people? Not much yet. And also bear in mind the fact that apart from the M40, apart from the B40, the M40 is a huge group, a huge population, and we in Malaysia require their spending power. If they are going to be, stifled insofar as their ability to live their life normally, spending will shrink. Spending will continue to shrink in Malaysia, and that's something that it's not helpful for everyone. So I think it is necessary to think a bit about the M40 group.
A lot of people are talking about 2022 as the year of recovery, and unfortunately, I'm one of those extreme pessimists that would like to argue that 2022 might be a little bit better, if anything, from 2021, but the road to recovery is still far and long ahead. That's my position, and I'm happy to debate people on this. But that kind of expectation does point to the fact that not many businesses are going to come back. The SME Association has stipulated up to 400,000 businesses have shuttered on a backdrop of 1.2 million businesses, SME businesses, particularly micro and small businesses. They might never recover, they might never come back. The 800,000 businesses that are still around following the pandemic might not be in the same shape and form as they were before. Those that have adopted to technology, that have adopted to e-commerce and all the other stuff that is in between, they tend to fare better than most. But generally speaking, not many Malaysians are plugged in on the net, so to speak, when it comes to pushing forward the e-commerce agenda and the e-business, or making their businesses a little bit more internet friendly. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to help everybody involved, the M40 in particular, but the business owners as well, which may also be the M40. How does the situation or the landscape look like on the backdrop of that thematic theme that we've seen, that budget 2022 will be on the road to recovery? Does it match up with the realities that are happening on the ground?
Wow, that is a huge question, Ibrahim. I must say that perhaps I will probably not be the best person to answer that. But I mean, if I were to put myself in the shoes of the everyday Malaysian, and I put on and open my eyes and look at what's around me and what what the economy looks like from my lens. I mean, you are absolutely right. There are a lot who have shut down businesses, particularly. I mean, you go around. I mean, go to the malls, and some of the smaller malls, you'll find half of the shops closed. And these are the guys, these are the small operators who basically are not able to survive. The big boys probably can still survive by way of certain types of scales of economy, but the smaller guys are all doing terribly. So there is, to be very honest, there is very, well, to me, very little that can be done apart from the fact that the whole economy is allowed to open up fully. And in order to do that, I think vaccinations are going to be important. I think there has to be a little bit of more stimulus in the economy, and hopefully the budget theme, which is reform and recovery, and the right amounts of money are put in the right places. So the suggestion of more funds being available for development. Okay. Question is, what areas of development? I mean, it surely has to be towards injecting and stimulating the economy, stimulating businesses. If that doesn't move, then really, I think we will be in bad shape for a longer time, to be honest.
All right, Tai. We'll go for one short break before we continue our conversation with KPMG. We'll be right back after these messages. Thanks for staying on with us. We're talking about budget 2022, some of the ideas that might come from it, some of the ideas that we're looking out to be in the budget itself. Joining us in this conversation is Tai Lai Kok, the head of tax at KPMG in Malaysia. Tai, the tiring statement that I always hear every time there's a budget is this is the biggest budget that the country has ever been presented. And while it's a very tiring statement to make, it is also true every single year. Every single year, we've seen the budget grow and grow and grow. So my question to you is, how big is the growth of this budget for this year, you think, particularly when we've seen how the macroeconomics are pointing towards a shrinking economy, shrinking GDP and such? Do you feel that the budget this year will be bigger than last? And if so, how big will it be?
Well, I think that it will likely be bigger. If I had a crystal ball, that would be fantastic. I would know exactly how much it is that we have or we are projecting to spend. But what is clear, Ibrahim, is that based on the 12 Malaysia plan, there certainly is going to be a lot more expenditure. So question is obviously, how is this all going to be funded? Okay, I think FM was suggesting that the debt ratio may have to go up, and therefore perhaps even a higher deficit. So I think we have to be prepared for that. So I do think it will be larger. How much larger? I don't know, to be very honest. A safe guess, maybe 10 to 15% larger than last year, but that will be another 20 to 30 billion worth of expenditures.
Wow. Okay. Much of the things that we need to discuss for budget this year, we have to compare it against last year. The most memorable criticism, I don't think it's the biggest criticism, but the most memorable criticism that I remember following Belanjawan 2021 that was presented last year was that the income from corporate tax was slated to be very high. There's a lot of comments and critiques from various sectors saying that it might not be realized. And lo and behold, a lot of corporates in Malaysia tend to post higher than expected earnings, at least in some sectors. So it's a mix and match in terms of, or a mixed bags of results in terms of corporate earnings. But if you average it out, the corporate earnings for this year might not necessarily be the same as the years before. Do you think there is a shortfall in that?
I am expecting that there will be. As you correctly pointed out, there are those who are going to be making super profits in 21, as well as in 20, obviously. But those will be few and far between. So to me, the majority of businesses will have suffered quite a bit insofar as the pandemic is concerned. Reduced sales, okay, the inability to collect from debts that are owing. So I do see that there will be significant pressures insofar as government tax revenues are concerned. So
What about the missed opportunity of taxing glove makers then? Of course, it doesn't make sense to tax them now, but this windfall tax conversation, where do you stand on this?
Okay. Well, to a certain extent, it wasn't taxed last year. I mean, we talked about it. I remember Ibrahim. But at the end of the day, there was some kind of a handshake and a contribution by the glove manufacturers at the end of the day to the tune of 400 million. So question is, of course, will it come again? But I think we saw the FM announce that there will not be any windfall tax this year. Okay, so that perhaps is a little bit of relief to those who are making the super profits this year. But I guess the question is, would that be something that is helpful? Certainly, it is something that can help, can bring immediate relief. And also it is something that can really be seen as once-off. But I guess having said that, with the 400 million that was contributed by the glove manufacturers last year, if the same amount is being looked for this year, then really, I guess the question will be, is it once-off? It doesn't look like it's once-off anymore. But realistically, rather than to have a situation whereby a totally new tax is brought in and whereby it becomes a perpetual arrangement, where you have new things that are, I know people were talking about carbon tax, people were talking about capital gains tax, all kinds of, how you call it, all kinds of thoughts people were having about where the government is going to increase its revenue. That is still a huge question mark. I mean, there have been discussions, but so far no great hints yet. We know for sure windfall tax is not coming, since the FM has mentioned that quite recently. But I guess what else could they be, how we call that, brought in order for the government to be
Or
able
GST,
to
Tai.
finance? Or
It's
GST, you're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In fact, that is the conversation that I want to ask you, because being the tax leader of KPMG, I don't have enough airtime to share with you the benefits of having a GST in the country against an SST. It just is. But to introduce it is suicidal. In fact, I was mooting such an idea via a tweet, and I was quite convincingly attacked by unknowns on the reintroduction of the GST. And I'm a nobody, I mean, I'm not an elected official, I'm not the finance minister, so I can only imagine the backlash if the government reintroduces it. But do you feel that this is one of those really bitter pills that has to be swallowed in order for us to continue on our march to be sufficient when it comes to income collection for the country?
I think it is, to be very honest. I mean, I look at it as a tax professional who understands how the tax is supposed to work. And it is an efficient tax. It ensures that all those who consume pay a tax. And it is a fair tax. So you use, you pay. And it also ensures that there are no leakages, in the sense that I do not avoid having to contribute to the country by not declaring income, because I do consume. So I think it's a fair tax, but it does need to be done well. There needs to be care taken for the needy, because they are also going to consume, and therefore they will also bear this tax. There are also questions of how the administration was. The biggest gripe I think businesses had with GST was the fact that I will have to pay you customs on any GST on a month by month basis, but I may not get refunds back in a timely manner. I think that
is still the issue right now, right? Some businesses are still owed by the
they
customer.
are still, yes, because audits are still going on, but that causes a lot of issues with businesses, because I am due a refund, but you're making me wait, and that is, cash flow is my lifeblood. I will not be able to survive without cash flow. So if it is a system whereby, yes, you need to review, you need to make sure that the amount you're paying back is correct, to me, do that review, but do not defer the refunds. Refund whatever is due back to the taxpayer on the basis that the taxpayer has correctly declared what is due to him to be paid and what is due back to him. But if you do find that this particular taxpayer is overclaiming wrongly, then take action against the taxpayer. Then the whole flow of things work. I will pay, I will get my refunds, I'm satisfied with the system. If I'm a
That's
good taxpayer,
yeah,
then
basically that's how you enjoy the real benefits of GST being in motion.
correct. So withholding it causes a problem.
One question that I remember us talking about this time last year was on your concern about taxing the shadow economy, and you were talking about using technology and transparency of e-money, e-wallet, and less usage of cash. It seems like by default, the cash usage of the country has dropped tremendously. I don't have data to prove it, but anecdotal data does show that even if you're in the B40, you would use lesser cash these days as you would before. I wish I had some numbers. I wish maybe I can reach out to Banegara after this interview and ask about the cash usage. But you feel that 2021 has been a watershed moment where we have migrated quite substantially across country, across income, across geography, various states, various cities, into the adoption of e-wallet and e-money to a point where we can actually now start talking about taxing the shadow economy. What do you think of this?
I think absolutely we have. And I mean, just an observation I had when I was in China many years ago. You know how they use WeChat over there, and you pay using WeChat.
Yeah,
and it was virtually every trader has it. And I think we are getting there. There are more and more traders nowadays that basically adopt the use of e-wallets and payments via e-wallets. And it is going to be a situation whereby the government can tap on these e-wallet providers to give them information. Okay, for sure. But again, it is a choice. I may choose not to use the e-wallets for whatever reason. But certainly there is much more information that can be made available to the government to see whether or not businesses are paying the right amount of tax. There's certainly much more that the government can do now insofar as latching on to those who have failed to declare their fair share.
Okay, before we end, I want to ask you, maybe you could share with us some of the 2 or 3 points that we, the Rakyat, should keep an eye out when it comes to the budget. There's a lot of things that's going to come out, and everything's going to come out near instantaneous terms. Anywhere from budget deficit to debt ceiling to all that, CapEx versus OPEX kind of distribution. While there are a lot of things going to be announced, and everything's going to be announced at the same time, what would be some of your suggestions into what the Rakyat should keep an eye out for when the budget is being presented?
Well, I guess insofar as the Rakyat is concerned, I think they should make sure that they do look out for the opportunities, the little biscuits that the government does give, and it does provide these biscuits here and there. Some things that have tended to be announced tend to just disappear from people's sights because it doesn't seem to be very, how we call that, earth-shattering, let's just say, there can be things like the PRS contributions that you could be entitled relief to, and most people never even catch on. So there are going to be benefits here and there. I think in the past, what we've seen is once you add it all up, you probably do get, on the average, a few hundred ringgit worth of benefits insofar as additional reliefs are concerned. So do look out for that. I think insofar as businesses are concerned, most of them probably will have consultants who are going to be able to give them some insights into potential savings that are there. I will be very honest, I'm not sure how much they will be because, throughout the pandemic, you would have seen all the various packages that have been announced that provided various bits of benefits. I do hope that there will be still more that will be announced by the government this coming October. But it is hard to say. The government has got so many things on its mind and so many things to take care of.
And then, of course, for market watchers and observers, people like you and me, what would be the 1 or 2 things that you would definitely keep an eye out for? Is it the deficit rate? Is it the debt limit income ratio? Which one would it be?
Certainly the deficit. I mean, whilst we want the government to spend, we also want the government to spend what it can spend. So if the deficits continue to go up, it is going to be a long-term pain that we will feel. So question is, how much will the deficit go up if it indeed does go up? And hopefully there are good plans in place to bring it back down again in the future when we are in a much more stable position.
Fantastic. We're going to continue to have conversations with not just with Tai of KPMG, but KPMG itself over the next few days and weeks leading up to the budget, and of course the post-budget show. But for now, we'll put a pin in this conversation. That was Tai Lai Kok, the head of tax at KPMG in Malaysia. If you've missed any part of this show, just head on to astroawani.com, look for Notepad over there. You can also look for KPMG as well, or use our microsite, Belanjawan 2022. There are plenty of resources for you to go through when you reach that particular microsite. Until then, thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.